No DQ Galaxy. We are live with a NoDQ.com recap of Monday Night Raw for Monday, June the 6th, 2022. We are coming off the Hell in a Cell premium live event. A lot of interesting happenings on this week's Raw. Let's get right down to it. Shout out to Andy. He's finally able to watch it live. I appreciate everybody watching, whether it's live or on demand. Thank you all for that. Let's get to this recap. We had footage shown from Hell in a Cell, Cody Rhodes versus Seth freaking Rollins. Cody, of course, wrestling with a torn pectoral muscle. We had Cody come down to the ring for a promo to address the injury. He said it was demoralizing, but he does not want to be sad. He has a daughter. He went through literal hell, and he wanted to show his daughter that he was not cynical. He fought, and he won. And he is now officially done with Seth freaking Rollins. Everyone is probably thinking at this point, highly unlikely in all likelihood. Cody then talked about what was above him. And what was above him was the Money in the Bank briefcase. Very interesting. Cody Rhodes talking about how if somehow he gets through his surgery okay, 4 weeks' time, which recovering from a torn pec after a month is pretty much impossible. Not even John Cena could come back from a torn pec in 1 month. But Cody was like, maybe somehow, some way, he could win Money in the Bank and win the WWE title. Then, of course, we had Seth freaking Rollins arrive. He wasn't dancing around and celebrating and being all animated. He came into the ring, said he still does not like Cody. However, Cody earned his respect. Seth said that Cody put on one of the gutsiest performances ever, and he's the last person Cody needs to be hearing it from, but Dusty is proud of his baby boy. Rollins brought up how Cody offered a handshake the night after WrestleMania, and Rollins said he was going to return the favor. He offered his hand. Cody was a little hesitant, of course, but did shake Rollins' hand, and then Rollins left. Rollins went to the back. Cody saluted the fans. He walked to the back. Right before he got to the stage, he turned and saluted the fans one more time. But then all of a sudden, Seth freaking Rollins ran in from behind with a sledgehammer and hit Cody Rhodes in the back of the neck, upper back with the sledgehammer. If this was real life, probably would have murdered the guy. But this is WWE, and it only briefly incapacitates him. Cody was down, and Seth took the sledgehammer and started to jam it into the injured pec of Cody, and then Seth also stomped on the pec, and then officials came down, Curtis Axel once again, and eventually they got Rollins to leave. After the commercial break, despite being hit with the sledgehammer, Cody Rhodes was able to get back to his feet, and he walked away without medical attention. They had a stretcher and everything, but Cody was going to walk out on his own, that tough SOB that he is. Pretty good angle here to write off Cody for the time being and get some extra heat on Seth freaking Rollins, although the whole idea that Cody was teasing he would be coming back after a month from surgery, I mean, come on now. That was ridiculous. But I did like the angle. I liked that Seth actually walked all the way to the back and then did the attack. But it was more or less expected. I was not thinking this was a Seth Rollins babyface turn. I was still waiting for that attack. And Darren, Cody had to salute the fans one last time before going in for surgery. We had our first match of the evening, which was Becky Lynch versus Dana Brooke. Dana had no entrance, by the way, because, well, she's part of the 24/7 title division, which essentially means she's not even opening match material. And pretty much immediately, the 24/7 people ran down Tozawa. Dana ended up rolling up Tozawa to become the new champion. Then Becky Lynch got on the mic and demanded a 24/7 title match with Dana Brooke. Yeah. So Dana accepted, and Becky Lynch was competing for the 24/7 title. I was really hoping that Becky would just destroy Dana Brooke in 30 seconds and then say, this title is worse than garbage. It's not even at the level of garbage. And then she would like take a hammer and destroy it or throw it in a river or do anything to it. Just get rid of it and rid the WWE of the 24/7 division. I would have liked that. I would have justified Becky Lynch being in this segment if she had won the title and gotten rid of it. But that's not what happened. Asuka came down, got on the apron. Dana rolled up Becky. Becky kicked out. But then Dana got Becky in another pinning position, and Asuka grabbed Becky's foot so Becky could not kick out. So yes, Dana Brooke successfully defended the 24/7 title against Becky Lynch. Wow. Now, granted, it was all storyline interference, but the record book, the official WWE record book, will state forever that Becky Lynch lost a 24/7 title match to Dana Brooke. Caleb Jacobs sent in a $3.15 super chat. Thank you for that. Says, Seth Rollins is the new Fiend. The Fiend put this in him. That would be an interesting storyline if the Fiend came back and aligned with Seth Rollins. I would be all for that. And yes, Seth Rollins was never the same after the Fiend got a hold of him. People have been thinking that the Fiend is coming back. He sent out a couple of tweets that got people talking. I'll believe it when I see it, but I do think if the Fiend returns, well, if the Fiend returns, period, it'll be in WWE since it's WWE's intellectual property. If Wyndham Rotundo returns to wrestling, I do suspect that it will be with WWE. We had Miz TV with Maurice coming back, and Maurice looking pretty good, I must say. Walter Cruz just wanted to remind everybody that Robbie is coming to NoDQ.com and wants everybody to know that. It is true. Robbie is coming. Stay tuned. Or not. But I would recommend staying tuned because when Robbie comes, it's going to be quite the spectacle. So Miz was dressed up in a tuxedo. He was hyping up the new season of Miz and Maurice, or Miz and Mrs., whatever the hell it's called. It's actually on right now. Not sure I should be saying that because you guys could be watching that instead of me right now. Oh, and I forgot to mention, they showed a video clip. John Cena is coming back. Marquand 1976 sent in a $5 super chat. Thank you for reminding me. Vince McMahon called Roman Reigns, Brock Lesnar, Undertaker, and John Cena after Cody's injury. Cena was the only one to pick up. Well, I think all of those people were being called, well, not Undertaker, but the others were going to be called for SummerSlam regardless of whether Cody got hurt or not. I think the plan was always for John Cena to come back and face Austin Theory. They've been teasing that match for weeks now on social media. But perhaps there were other things going on in WWE that are a result of Cody being injured. We'll get to that here in just a few moments. But let's get back to this Miz TV segment. Riddle interrupted the segment, and he gave a shout out to Randy. Hopes Randy comes back soon. Miz was a jackass and said that Randy's career is over and Riddle is alone now, going to get his ass kicked by the bloodline every single week. And then Riddle, I guess he is going to face Roman Reigns at Hell in a Cell because he said he wants to fight that tribal piece of trash and take the WWE Universal Championship from him. And Maurice was insulted by Riddle. Riddle said that Maurice drags Miz around by his tiny balls. And Riddle actually got the crowd to chant tiny balls. I thought I've seen it all on wrestling shows. Miz got very angry, of course, and told Maurice to say that's not true. And Maurice said he has average balls. Miz was still not satisfied, so she had to correct herself and say gigantic balls. I guess I screwed up and said I said Hell in a Cell instead of Money in the Bank. Whatever. Tomato, tomato. But yeah, it's Money in the Bank coming up, not Hell in a Cell. They're not doing another Hell in a Cell pay-per-view next month. It is, in fact, Money in the Bank. So Riddle wanted Miz to prove that he has gigantic balls. And the crowd was chanting, prove it. Miz was very disgusted. Riddle wanted to fight. Miz said no. But then all of a sudden, Tommaso Ciampa, excuse me, attacked Riddle from behind and left. I guess that's his gimmick now. He just randomly attacks people. Miz then changed his mind. With Riddle down, Miz decided to have the match despite being in his tuxedo. We had the match, and Riddle started doing his signature moves, and Miz escaped an RKO. Maurice pulled Miz to the outside, but then Riddle caught Miz, pulled down his pants, and the crowd once again chanted tiny balls. Maurice gave Miz her purse, went over, distracted the referee, but then it backfired because Riddle ducked, Riddle hit the RKO, and scored the 1-2-3 victory, building up momentum for what I think is a championship match against Roman Reigns at the Money in the Bank pay-per-view. I don't like how Hell in a Cell and Money in the Bank are back-to-back because it's easy to screw it up. And I'm not sure if Ciampa's getting released or not. I hope he joins Judgment Day, but we'll talk more about that later with Judgment Day. Walter Cruz sent in a $5 super chat. Thank you for that, Walter. Says, with Cody injured, Riddle and Seth Rollins are front runners to win Money in the Bank, in my opinion, unless Riddle actually gets this title shot and only Vince finds balls funny. I think that Seth Rollins is the front runner. I really do. He can win it, and then when Cody returns, he gets the WWE title, but then Seth Rollins cashes in on him and ruins his moment. I feel like that's what's going to happen. It's going to be the Heist of the Century Part 2 in 2023. Cody is going to have his big moment, only for it to be stripped away by Seth Rollins. We had a tag team match, Street Profits versus the Unified Tag Team Champions, the Usos. And by the way, to answer Steve-O, yes, no Ali on the show. Ali wrestled on Main Event. Him and T-Bar and all those guys. And the Profits had a pretty hot start here against the Usos. Jimmy had to escape to the outside. After the commercial break, the Usos got the upper hand for a while, but then Jimmy started to trash talk. Dawkins got all fired up. And you had Dawkins coming over the top with a dive. Usos were doing dives. Everybody was doing dives. And then Montez Ford tagged in. hit the big frog splash, but Jimmy Uso broke it up. And then you had Jay and Ford on the outside. Jay got sent over the barricade, and then Ford just barely got back in the ring, beating the referee's 10 count, which means they will get a future opportunity at the tag team titles, probably at the Money in the Bank pay-per-view. I'm trying not to screw it up again. Riddle came down and celebrated with the Street Profits, so there you go. Street Profits in line for a tag team title match. They seem to be getting into this pattern of doing DQs now, or countouts, in these contender matches, which I guess is better than having the champions get pinned or made to submit. And the announcers even acknowledged Montez Ford's upper body being larger than it's been in the past. So we'll see how much longer the Street Profits go before Montez gets his singles run. We had Bobby Lashley come into the ring for a promo, and he talked about how the biggest mistake MVP made was to stab him in the back. Then all of a sudden, Austin Theory arrived, Theory, and talked about how Lashley was out there stealing his spotlight. It's his time. He ordered Lashley to leave, but before that, he wanted a selfie, and Lashley said it's his ring, and Lashley decided to issue a challenge. He wanted a match, and Theory responded by flexing his bicep, so Lashley flashed his bicep, and Theory said that Lashley doesn't deserve a U.S. title match, even though Lashley beat Lesnar, McIntyre, Orton. Doesn't matter because Lashley has never beaten Theory. And then Theory went for a selfie. He got his ass knocked out of the ring, and that was that. I'm guessing they're going to save this match for the pay-per-view, or maybe they'll do a contenders match and Lashley beats him, and then they do the match at Money in the Bank. I feel like they're going to do a U.S. title match, Steve-O. I mean, yeah, it's kind of interesting. Lashley versus Theory with John Cena coming back soon. I still feel like it's going to be somehow, some way Theory versus Cena for the title. Next up, we had Veer versus Dominik Mysterio. Rey Mysterio was out there. Psycho Jet Black sent in a $2 super chat, says, who has the best biceps in WWE right now? Well, I think it has to be Bobby Lashley. Lashley's jacked, and if not him, Brock Lesnar. Whenever Brock Lesnar does show up, Brock is still one of the thickest cuts of meat in the wrestling business, maybe the thickest. We had Veer in a situation where Rey Mysterio was trying to outrun him and use the speed for an advantage. Rey was running in and out of the ring, trying to tire out Veer. He got a few moves in on Veer, but eventually Veer caught him. And Dominik somehow managed to get back in it. Veer tossed Dominik into Rey on the outside of the ring, but then Dominik dodged Veer again and hit a 619. He hit a big frog splash, but Veer kicked out at 1. And Veer then hit the $1 million arm, was going to go for the submission, but Rey Mysterio came in, attacked Veer, causing a disqualification. Rey Mysterio hit Veer with a 619, and then him and Dominik fled the scene. What great baby faces they are. I guess this feud will continue. Why, I don't know, but I guess Veer needs somebody to work with for the time being, and it's going to be Veer versus Rey Mysterio and Dominik for the foreseeable future. Yippee. And next up, we had what was, in my opinion, the most interesting segment of the show. And yes, Veer barely gets a reaction when he comes. Robbie, on the other hand, when he comes, I think it's going to get a great reaction. We had Judgment Day coming down to the ring for a post pay-per-view or premium live event victory speech. Rhea Ripley talked about how they're destined for victory and their message is spreading like wildfire. And Priest talked about how Rhea's destiny is to become the women's champion at Money in the Bank. She has a main event match, which he mentioned. And Edge talked about how he's been doing this for 30 years, so the people in the arena need to close their mouths. He said he's proud of everything that Priest and Ripley have done. They listened to him, and now somebody else has heard their message. And that person was Finn Balor. Yes, Finn Balor was brought out. Finn Balor came down to the ring and cut a promo, talked about how he had clarity after the pay-per-view premium live event. He said that joining Judgment Day was a calling. He shook Edge's hand. Edge was ecstatic. And he said that Balor said that he was impressed when Rhea Ripley stood in front of Edge at Hell in a Cell. And Balor said that after that event, he talked with Rhea Ripley and Damian Priest and realized that they have more in common than he realized. And then Priest got back on the mic and said that they are now ready to shed the last bit of limitations that are holding them back. And that last limitation is Edge. Yes, Edge. Priest then attacked Edge with a major swerve on Monday Night Raw. Like, I half expected Finn Balor to join the group. Edge, however, being attacked and kicked out of his own group, I did not see that one coming. They swerved me on that one for sure. So they beat down Edge, and you had Finn Balor putting the Glasgow smile on Edge, which is a submission, basically a crossface, using the piece of the chair, the thing that Edge was doing to the Bloodline last year. They continued the beatdown. Officials were coming down, and then they were held off by Rhea Ripley, and Damian Priest grabbed the chairs and did the concerto to Edge. So yes, Finn Balor heel turn finally, and Edge, only a couple of months after being the heel leader of Judgment Day, he has officially been kicked out of the group. Now, a lot of people are wondering why. This seems like such a sudden change. Like, Edge actually cut his hair for this group, and now he's out, seemingly going back to being a babyface. Let's see, we got a few super chats here. Let me get to those. Walter Cruz sent in a $2 super chat, says, this came out of nowhere and Balor just changes. Well, as Corey Graves said, if you can't beat him, join him. Now, when this segment was first announced, that Judgment Day, and they were hyping this up with the countdown for the beginning of the third hour, they were doing that gimmick. My thought process was nobody was going to come out. This is what I thought was going to happen. Nobody was going to come out, and then Edge would be upset. AJ Styles and Finn Balor would come down to the ring and say, well, you know what? We're not done fighting. They would get in the ring, and then Balor would turn against AJ Styles. That's what I thought was going to happen. And they did something different here with the reveal of Balor being part of the group. Like, it kind of felt like a swerve. I don't know how you guys felt, but when Balor walked out there, I was thinking Balor's not really joining them. He's going to get in the ring and act like he's joining them, but then he's going to attack them, or AJ Styles was going to come in. And I thought that Balor was swerving them at first. And then when the whole Edge thing happened, that caught me completely off guard. I was not expecting it whatsoever. And God First, Hate It or Love It sent in a $2 super chat. Thank you for that. Says, the Judgment Day destroying Edge, shocking. Yeah, for sure. This was one of the more shocking segments on Raw in quite some time. I got to give them credit for it. Now, was it something they came up with at the last minute? Possibly. Psycho Jet Black sent in a $2 super chat. Says, I'm glad Finn Balor is no longer Grin Balor. I'm with you, man. I do have mixed feelings. Like, I'm happy Finn Balor went heel. I think that is something that is long overdue. He needed to turn heel a long time ago, in my opinion. Caleb Jacobs sent in a $2 super chat. Says, this was Edge's Judgment Day. Nice double turn. Edge is the one that I'm more confused about because I feel like he was getting into the groove, but I feel like Cody Rhodes going down with the injury may have forced, well, not necessarily forced, but influenced WWE to change direction with Edge and have Edge fill that void. Although Edge is a part-timer, that's the thing. He's not doing all of the house shows like what Cody was doing. But yeah, I feel like for television, Edge needed to go babyface to balance everything. And Finn Balor going heel might have been the plan all along, but then I guess they felt like they needed somebody as a face with Cody out of action. That's my thought process. Like, that makes sense. Still, like, Edge being kicked out of the group seems pretty random and no real reason to do that. Other than for the reason of balancing the heels and faces on Raw. Psycho Jet Black sent in a $2 super chat. Says, is Edge going to form the newer Brood? You know, I would not mind that. And another question that everybody's wondering is what happens now with AJ Styles? Him and Edge, they're not friends. Edge is out of the group, but where does AJ Styles go from here? That'll be interesting to see how that is all explained and what happens with that. AJ Styles was not on this show, by the way. They kept him off this week. Caleb Jacobs sent in a $3 super chat. Thank you, Caleb. Says, have Beth come back and be loyal to Edge against Rhea Ripley. That definitely opens up the door. Like, you could do a 6-person match. You could get Edge with AJ Styles, like they'll bury the hatchet. Edge, AJ Styles, and Beth Phoenix against the Judgment Day. This does open up some new match possibilities, and you can get Beth Phoenix back in the mix. So we'll see what they do. Edge versus Finn Balor one-on-one. I'm all for it. Like I said, Finn Balor going heel, I think, was long overdue, and I'm happy that they finally pulled the trigger on that one. I mean, he needed to turn heel a long time ago. It was a bold decision to turn Edge back to a babyface after all this work was invested. What happens with the music, too? Like, Edge had the new music. Does he go back to his old music? Does Judgment Day keep the other Alter Bridge song? We get Edge with Alter Bridge and then Judgment Day with Alter Bridge. Like, are they going to change up Judgment Day's music again to something else? I'm really curious to see where this goes. And they got a lot of buzz. Like, people have been blowing up about this on social media. A lot of opinions on it. And Steve-O, I'm hopeful that at some point Reigns will drop the WWE title and we can get a world title back on Monday Night Raw. That would be very nice. All right, let's move on here. Maybe I'll put up a few more comments from people. We had Omos versus Cedric the Entertainer, who was basically destroyed in about 10 seconds. Omos just quickly beat him with the choke slam bomb. And then afterwards, the Dirty Dogs returned. This was weird. Dirty Dogs showed up at the interview platform, basically what they're calling the Okerlund position. I like that. I'm cool with that name. That's where Gene Okerlund would interview wrestlers back in the 80s and 90s. MVP was pissed off. He confronted the Dirty Dogs because they were taking Omos's TV time. So Ziggler then hit MVP with a super kick, and then they ran away. This is interesting. So the Dirty Dogs are faces now? Like, what's the deal here? I guess they're going to be the next guys to job out to Omos, and maybe they're going to try to use Ziggler as a way to get Omos over, have him sell for Omos and all that stuff. I was kind of hoping Robert Roode would just be back on his own with his old music again, but whatever. Dr. Scorpio with a $5 super chat. Thank you for that, Scorpio. I appreciate it. Says, this is why WWE should build up multiple stars instead of just 1 or 2 stars, or else something like Cody getting hurt could happen. I hear you, man. Like, WWE tends to put a lot of their eggs in a very small amount of baskets, and that's the risk you take when you only focus on a couple of people. If one of your top stars goes down with injury, then what do you do? So very good point there. Like with AEW, like CM Punk going down with injury, even though he's the champ, it's not the end of the world for AEW because their roster is so loaded and they have a lot of guys that they have protected with the booking that can fill those top spots very easily. But with WWE, yeah, it's kind of a tough spot right now. And not having a world champion on Raw doesn't help things either, because like none of the top guys really have something to fight for right now. It's kind of silly. We had Otis with Chad Gable going up against Ezekiel. Pretty standard Raw match here. Ezekiel was suplexed around a little bit, but then Ezekiel made a comeback and he hit the jumping knee, and then he ended up pinning Otis, took him down to the ground, pinned him. And then afterwards, he cut a promo and said that everybody deserves a second chance. He wants a rematch next week with Kevin Owens. Owens came down to the ring, said he was feeling generous, and accepted the match. However, Ezekiel had to do one thing: admit that he's Elias. And Elias said he admits it, but Owens wanted to have him say the actual name. So Ezekiel said he admits he is Elias. Kevin Owens started gloating like crazy, very happy, but then Ezekiel said he lied. And he then hit Owens with a jumping knee, laid him out, and I guess he technically gets his match now because he did say he's Elias. He wasn't serious, but he did say it. I figured we would get the rematch, and I'm hoping next week we hear that guitar strumming when Kevin Owens is on the verge of victory. Or even better still, a certain somebody appears on the Titantron to distract Kevin Owens. I hope we get that. I really want to see them show Elias or hint that Elias is actually a different person. And then we had our main event of the evening. Bianca Belair came down, the women's champion. Psycho Jet Black sent in a $2 super chat. Thank you. Says, I admit that Mr. Tito is better than Mo Camera. Well, Mr. Tito, I don't think hates Roman Reigns as much as Mo Camera. And I like Mo Camera, but Roman Reigns is great. And Mo Camera's gotta fall in line and acknowledge our tribal chief, as far as I'm concerned. So it was Alexa Bliss versus Liv Morgan versus Rhea Ripley versus Doudrop with Nikki ASH in her corner four-way match to determine Bianca's opponent at Money in the Bank. Rhea Ripley and Doudrop, the two powerhouses, traded blows. Doudrop was pulled to the outside by Liv Morgan and Alexa Bliss, but then Doudrop started to get the upper hand on everybody, and she started to wear out Alexa Bliss. Liv Morgan and Rhea Ripley got back in the ring. Doudrop hit a sit-down powerbomb to Liv, but Alexa broke it up. Then Rhea Ripley and Doudrop got up on the top rope. Alexa Bliss and Liv Morgan came back in, and we had the Tower of Doom spot where Alexa and Liv powerbombed Doudrop as Doudrop was suplexing Rhea Ripley. I mean, this is the easiest spot in the world to get the crowd popping. Like, the crowd loved it. They started chanting, "This is awesome." I feel like it works every single time. Like, it's kind of played out as a television viewer, but the live crowd always eats it up. They always get the crowd chanting, "This is awesome." I feel like without fail every time it happens. So anyways, Alexa and Liv kept trying to roll each other up, and they were countering, and they ended up rolling around the ring several times. Crowd loved that. And then Alexa went for the Twisted Bliss, but Liv Morgan got her knees up, and you had Liv going for the Oblivion on Doudrop, but Nikki ASH prevented that from happening. Rhea Ripley then hit Doudrop with the Riptide, somehow managed to get her up, and picked up the victory 1-2-3. So yes, Rhea Ripley will face Finn Balor, or not Finn Balor. Rhea Ripley will face Bianca Belair for the Women's Championship at Money in the Bank. And to close out the show, Finn Balor and Damian Priest showed up, and they stood in the ring Judgment Day together with the other side by Alter Bridge. We'll see if they keep using that theme next week. The three of them standing in the ring, the new Judgment Day. They closed out the show on top. So overall, very good Raw this week, all things considered. Psycho Jet Black sent in a $5 super chat. Says, seriously, is the reason that they're still called Doudrop and Nikki ASH is WWE thinks they can get them over with ridiculous names? I honestly have no idea why they still have those names. I think for Doudrop, it's to copyright, trademark, whatever. Nikki ASH, I have no idea why she's still doing that character, why they haven't put her back in that Nikki Cross role or something. Like, give Doudrop and Nikki a makeover. Like, I don't understand why that's so difficult. But hey, we got the Finn Balor heel turn, so maybe there's still hope. So overall, I did enjoy the show. I would give it, I'm going to go B+. I know Stefan thought it was a lot of filler, but I think the big angle with Edge was really strong and compelling for sure. I like the main event, Rhea Ripley picking up the win, building up Judgment Day. The angle with Cody was good. So all in all, I thought it was pretty solid. I like the stuff with Ezekiel and Kevin Owens. They're keeping that going. There were a few negatives, though. The Becky Lynch stuff was kind of but like I'm beyond caring at this point. Building Nexus with a $10 super chat. Thank you for that. Says, would they really overshadow the end of Roman Reigns' reign with a cash-in? I don't think that would happen. I'm not going to rule it out, though. Like, I could see somebody cashing it in and winning the WWE title. But I really think they got to establish that Roman Reigns will defend the WWE title separately from the Universal title if he's going to have the two championships. I still don't know what the hell they're doing or what the end game of all this is, but I really hope that we get the WWE title back on Raw and separate the titles. If you're not going to truly merge it and have the champion actually appear on both shows. Like, if Reigns was actually on Raw defending the title, I'm all for there being one world champion, but they're not doing it. So you might as well split the title again and have the WWE title on Raw. I do give the show a B+. I would say it's a recommend, especially the stuff with the Judgment Day. And, of course, the Cody promo at the beginning would be the main segments I would recommend checking out. And that was Raw, everybody. I'm looking forward. See, the thing is, I'm also intrigued about next week, which I'm usually not. Like, when Raw is over, I'm like, whatever. But this week, I'm curious to see where everything's going. I'm looking forward to the Owens Ezekiel match. Looking forward to seeing what's next for the Judgment Day, what Seth Rollins is doing next, what they're doing for Money in the Bank. Like, they got me invested for next week. So to me, that alone makes Raw a success this week. Psycho Jet Black sent in a $2 super chat. Says Stephen Osborne versus Colin Andrew, Beard versus Beard. Hey, maybe we'll make it happen one day. Next No DQ meetup, we'll have to get Stefan to make the trip, and we'll do a little beard off between those two guys. I like it. Maybe we could do something for charity. Shave off the beard for charity. Stefan's like, no beard beats mine. Well, maybe you guys could put it up in a contest and we could do it for charity. We'll see. Anything's possible. But that's all I got for tonight, everybody. I will be back Wednesday night after Dynamite to talk about that. Make sure you guys stay tuned to NoDQ.com for all the latest wrestling news and rumors. You can check out videos from Raw, and you can read about the fallout regarding Cody Rhodes' injury, what's going on with MJF, all that up on NoDQ.com right now. And shout out to Virtue for doing a great job slaying the trolls as he usually does. And don't forget, everybody, Robbie is coming. Take care, everybody. Have a great night. And remember to say yes to NoDQ.com. See you all next time.